Okay, hi everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the first in our series of teaching online webinars that we're having this academic year. My name is Sam Eneman, and I'm in the Center for Teaching and Learning, and I will be your host and moderator for this particular session. So just a few housekeeping issues before we get started. So if you have any sound problems, just click on the audio to check those out. If you need to leave temporarily, please use the step out button. It's represented by a coffee cup in your emoticons. If you have any issues, technical issues, please call Webex's support. You can see the number there, 1-800-866-229-3239. That is available to you and your students all the time, not only in webinars, but whenever you're using Webex as well. And then just a couple of other guidelines. So if you want to ask a question during the session with your microphone, just raise your hand, click the hand icon, and I will call on you. If you want to type any comments or questions in chat, I will be monitoring the chat, so please feel free to type them there. And we are recording this session, and I will be sending out a link later this week for the session. So our topic today is 10 best practices for teaching online. Our presenter is Florence Martin. Florence is an associate professor in the Instructional Systems Technology Program. She researches on technology tools that improve learning and performance, mobile technologies, and learning analytics. So let's all please welcome Florence Martin.
Thank you all for taking the time to join us today. Thank you, Sam, for hosting the session and also for the quick introduction. And as Sam mentioned, I teach in the Instructional Systems Technology Program. Here are a few courses that I teach: Design, Development, and Evaluation of Online Learning. I teach a course on Instructional Multimedia Development and also on Instructional Design. Quickly about my program. So we have a graduate certificate and a Master's of Education in Instructional Systems Technology with 3 concentrations: a school specialist concentration for those who are interested in becoming a technology facilitator, a training and development concentration for those who are interested in being an instructional designer in the corporate world. And finally, we also have an online learning and teaching for those who are interested in learning how to design and facilitate online learning. So the online learning and teaching concentration is still new. We have 6 courses as part of it. So here's a quick look. If any of you are interested, there's the link to the flyer, or you could just Google, go to edld.uncc.edu, and then you'll be able to pull it up from my program. 6 courses, and then you can earn your grad cert. So today's talk, I framed this presentation around this resource here, which is from the University of New Hampshire, from their Instructional Development Center. So I took their 10 headings, and then, you'll hear on how I use them in my courses. So I give you some personal and practical examples that I use. Actually, while we get started, I would like to quickly hear which department each of you are from, just for me to get an idea which department you're from, and also if you already teach online or you're looking at teaching online. So if you can just type that in the chat window, I'd really appreciate that. Okay, somebody from sociology, Mary. Okay, Karen's from sociology too. You will be teaching online, great. Okay, so while the other two, I think there are two more attendees while they type. Let's get started. So here's the 10 best practices that I'm going to talk about. A quick look. So we'll spend time the next, I'll try to do this in like 45 minutes and make sure that there's time for questions. And I'll also pause in between for questions. So if you have questions, feel free to type it in the chat window or even raise your hand, and we'll take it. So that we don't wait till the very end. So the first section is on preparation and planning. So, when you transition from teaching face-to-face to teaching online, there is quite a bit of work that goes into getting ready for it. So, for those of you like Karen, I'm actually glad you're here in today's webinar because that shows that you are putting in the time to get ready to teach online. So you have to be ready to spend more time than you would in a traditional course, especially the first time when you're getting your online course ready. But once the course is ready, then, it makes it, the future implementations are not as time-consuming. And then also the other recommendation would be to seek out successful models. So you're here at a webinar, which is perfect. Look for workshops, webinars, also other exemplary courses. Look for your Canvas. Canvas has a lot of courses on Canvas Commons. You could look through that. CTL has Quality Matter certified courses. You can look through that. So look for some, successful models, and you can always get ideas from that. So that's something, I'd recommend. Experience technology from a student's perspective is very, very important. So, for you to participate in an online course, if possible, that would be a great thing to do, because sometimes we don't realize exactly what all goes behind, when students are in an online course. So that's a recommendation. Also, before you start teaching, compiling a list of resources that will benefit your students, to knowing where to send them to when they need technical assistance, having all this put together, because you will not, during teaching the course, you will not have time to provide the technical assistance one-on-one. So you need to have this list put together so that you know where to send them to. Some more recommendations under preparation and planning. Once you create the course, test all your activities and exercises. Read them carefully. Sometimes, there might be little things, but then if some things are not clear, then you're going to get a lot of emails asking for clarification. So testing really makes a difference. Testing your course in a variety of browsers and devices. These days, students are using so many different browsers. Test them in IE, in Firefox. If you're a Mac user, Safari, all browsers, and then devices too. Students are using mobile devices these days, so it doesn't hurt to test on iPads and even smartphones. Very important. And so also, while you're getting ready to teach, set a routine for yourself on how to manage your course. Sometimes, when you teach face-to-face, it's so different. You have assigned time, you go in, you teach, and then, you grade. Whereas in an online course, you have to really manage your schedule, because teaching can take a back seat otherwise, because there's no assigned time, for you to design your course and then also to set aside for grading or facilitating. So it's very, very important. Setting select dates for sending out announcements and setting aside time for grading is very important. Also knowing who to reach out to in case of technology challenges is very important. So as I said, putting that list together ahead of time is important. So this is just a screenshot of all the different browsers and different OSS operating systems. And here are the help numbers, which you probably already know, right? Who to reach out to if there are questions. help@uncc.edu. And then that's the phone number to call. And actually, Canvas, if you're going to be using Canvas, Canvas has a 24/7 help support too. So that's a great resource to have. So that's just about getting started, like preparation and planning. Do we have any questions around that? I give you a few strategies on how to get ready. So I am doing this webinar from CTL today, and Sam and we are here in Kennedy at, I think it's 2 to 1. So if you hear some background noise, there's some work going on. I hope you're still able to hear me clearly. If you have issues, let us know. Just put it in the chat window. Okay, good. So let's move on to design. So while you're building your course, keep it simple and have a logical navigation. Like if your students log in and if they are lost, they're just going to close the browser and disappear. Keeping it simple, making everything user-friendly is very, very important. So I would highly recommend that. Block your content into small, accessible pieces. That's important. Chunk it. I've seen faculty do sometimes weekly units, sometimes in modules. So choose whatever works for you. Some faculty, I've seen them even combine several weeks together into modules. I actually do each week. I have a unit. That's how I run my course. So into small accessible pieces is very important. And another important thing to take away from design is alignment. Alignment is very critical. So having that alignment between what objectives you have for each module to the instructional materials, to activities, to assessment. Students like to see that clear alignment. So if we say these are the objectives, are we giving them all the material that they need to achieve that objective, and then are we testing them, giving them the activities and the assessment to measure that particular objective. So that is very important. Also, one step, the broader thing is also when you have module objectives, also look for the alignment between your module objectives and your course goals. So here is a quick look at, so this is my homepage on Canvas, and I have 8 different, icons here. And so again, it's simple, logical navigation. So I give them the course overview, information about me. When they click on it, they read about me. I give them my web link. I have a voice thread introduction for them to get to know more about me. Then I have the syllabus and the schedule, and then I have a getting started module for them to go through, and we'll talk about this later too. I quickly want to show you how you can keep your homepage simple. Getting started module, and then all the course modules are under course module, so that's where the bulk of the content is. And then course forums, and finally I list a variety of student resources. And I'll elaborate on this in the next few sections. So that's one look on how you could do a simple homepage for design. And this was an approach I did when I was used Moodle. I think this is the only screenshot I left from Moodle to give you just show you the alignment that I did for each module. So if you look at it, so I start off with objectives, measurable objectives. If you look at the keywords, they are from based on Bloom's taxonomy. You see mostly low-level verbs here: describe, identify, and then there's readings aligned to that objective. And then I have something called as e-lesson, which is nothing. It's an instructor-generated PowerPoint narrated. I created it using Camtasia. I did not. I don't like the term lecture, so I'll use the term e-lesson. And my recommendation for creating e-lesson is within 10 to 15 minutes, not go longer than that, and that's what the research says too. And then, after the content, there's several activities they do. So there's a discussion, asynchronous discussion, then there's assignment, and then there's a reflection I make them do. But if you see how the alignment is very obvious to them in this. I did it in a table format. You don't have to do it in a table format. So in Canvas, you can still list all of these, one below the other. So this is a navigation that I did. Let me look for the pointer. So this is a course navigation, and I did it in weeks. So in Canvas again, it's a little different. You can brainstorm and see if there's ways how you could build in a navigation. So I want to take a quick minute to refer you to Quality Matter Standards, just to stress on the importance of instructional alignment. If there's one thing that we can take away from QM, it is alignment. So if you look at the standards 2.1, 3.1, 4.1, 5.1, and 6.1, it shows how they start off with learning objectives, and then they say then you have to have assessments which are aligned or measures the learning objectives, and then instructional materials which again contribute to achievement, and then also is aligned with the unit objectives, and then learning activities again promote the achievement of the stated learning objectives, and finally tools support learning objectives. And these are all essential standards. So just stressing on the importance of alignment in design. Another thing I do in my course is I also create this table so students can see it up front. So you have the weeks and then the subjectives and what activities are aligned to that and then what assignment is aligned to that particular objective. So students get the picture of the alignment. So that's a quick look at design. So keep it simple, consistency is important, and alignment is very, very critical. Any questions on design? No questions? Okay. We'll keep moving to expectations. So when you are, getting ready to teach online, when you're in face-to-face, it's easy to communicate expectations. So in an online setting, all this has to be clearly written out, right? First thing is you cannot expect an online student to do something you cannot do yourself. They are not all tech savvy, they're all native digital students, but still we cannot expect them to do everything. So, try it out. You have to learn how to do it, and hopefully, they'll do it too. So also learn about your students' technology skills. Very important. Asking them to complete a readiness survey. So there are readiness surveys out there, and I'll give you a link to a sample one out of Chapel Hill. So that gives them a chance to reflect and see what skills they come with as an online learner. It's not only technology. It's like how are their learning styles. I mean, are they self-disciplined to do this by themselves? So all those are important. So for them to, do this readiness survey is really helpful. I usually make them complete a readiness survey during in my Getting Started module. And also setting clear expectations and guidelines. So, have clear parameters for computer use, for online etiquette, which is like netiquette, and also email conventions. So those all are very, very important. You have to put as much of this in your syllabus. So it makes it clear. So then if there are questions, you can always refer them to the syllabus. Creating a clear grading scale is important because a lot of questions will be around grading. So, having those grading rubric ahead of time, in your course, it clarifies things. Having criteria, rubrics is very, very important, and tell students how to grade, how you will be grading them. Here is the readiness survey that I was referring to. So there's the link if you want to take it down, or even if you Google, online learning readiness questionnaire, I'm sure there's several of them that pulls up. So if you look at it, there's a variety of questions. It's not only about technology, right? I learn fairly easily, I can keep myself on track on time. So those are all some skills that are good or important for an online student. So, there's the link if you want to take it. And I think we are also recording this webinar, and then on that page, Sam usually also links the PDF of the PowerPoint, which we can do. So if you want to later download it, that's a place for you to go back to. So some of the ways to set expectations: create a course orientation video and provide sufficient resources to introduce the learner to the course. When they get started, they would want to know where things are located in the course and what are some of the things they can expect in the course. Like, when in a face-to-face class, when a student walks in or the first week, those are the things that we talk about, right? We sometimes take more than half of the class period, sometimes even a full class period, talking about the course. So, having this course orientation video is very, very important. Creating a getting started quiz helps. What I do is, I create a short quiz. You could create it in a quiz format in the LMS, but then you can have important questions in there which can kind of test them on if they've read the syllabus and other orientation material. So that kind of makes them go back and review those information, very all the critical information that you don't want them to miss. Like when a discussion post due, or how many assignments you have in this course, important things that you want them to know. And also let the students know the response time for emails and feedback on projects. If you don't, you'll get emails asking, when they're going to hear from you. So having that in the syllabus is very important, and I'll show you an example. I think it's on the next slide. Also letting students know how they can contact you. what is your preferred way for them to contact you? Do you like them to contact you by email or phone or like through a forum? So that's very, very important. I actually give them like my order of preference. I start off with something called as the Contact Instructor Forum, which is the last point on this slide. It is like, you know, I create a thread where students can ask you and other students for help on class issues. So if somebody posts a question, everybody sees it. Then, you know, everybody doesn't have to email you the same question, and it saves you a lot of time. And when you respond, a whole class will see it. So that is my preferred method of contact, but I stress saying it has to be a general question about the course. But if it is personal question about your grade or, you know, it's something specific to your project, then email me. So the second one is email, then I tell them the third option is phone, and then finally I tell them I'm still here on campus. If you really want to come meet me in person, that's possible too. So, you know, setting those expectations help. So I mentioned about, you know, using this language in your syllabus. So here I have a section called course response time. And I say, please contact me via email or through the Contact Instructor Forum on, like this it says Moodle, it should say Canvas now, with any questions about the course project or other assignments. And then I say, I answer emails within 48 hours. I give myself 48 hours, and then I grade submitted assignments within 7 days. You know, so you pick what is convenient for you, and then you put that in the syllabus. So then, you know, your students exactly know when they will hear from you. And this is a screenshot of my Contact Instructor Forum that I just mentioned on the previous one. So I tell them clearly, you know, post questions about the course, including assignments, due dates, and procedures, so that all class members can benefit from it. But if it is personal in nature, you have to email me. So that is about expectation, okay? Any questions on expectations? Are we good? Okay. You're all quiet today. I would love to hear from you guys. Okay. So the next one is presence. So, you know, this is the biggest challenge, right? When I first started teaching asynchronously online, so I teach 100% online, my program is 100% online. I used to teach synchronously online when I was in my previous institution, but then, you know, when I came here to Charlotte and I was going to teach asynchronously online, my first thing was, you know, how am I going to connect with my students? Are my students going to know that I'm present, I'm there? So, you know, it's very, very critical. So you want to create a nurturing environment. So students, you should give opportunity for students to get to know you and also to get to know each other. So making time for introductions is very important. What I do is in my getting started module, you know, that's the time they introduce themselves, and I make them introduce themselves just not through text. I use like an audio visual tool, like, you know, I use VoiceThread. And last time I gave them a choice between VoiceThread or Animoto. So, you know, they can bring in pictures and they're talking. So it's like a short video, right? So they get to see and hear each other, which helps you connect with the other person a little bit better than just connecting via text. So that's something I recommend. Use interactive and participatory activities as often as possible, because you don't want your online course to be like a self-paced course, you're doing this by themselves. You want it to be like a two-way communication, right? So make it very interactive. Be there virtually. So, you know, even though you're teaching online, you know, you want to be present. Students should see you. You don't want to disappear from the learning environment. You're still the instructor, right? It's just the technology is not replacing you. So, you know, you want the students to be able to see you and know who you are. And I have a few strategies that I use, and I'll share that with you. And if you're recording your lectures, you know, I usually, like, you know, when I record my lectures, I have my headshot down on the video, on the Camtasia video, because I want them to see me and hear me so that they can know who I am. I think that is very important. And then, you know, just making gestures and, you know, like for them to connect with you is very, very important. What do your students say? Like, you know, do they say that I feel like I know you? Or are you there? So that's very, very important. Some ways of creating presence. One way is having some synchronous sessions, you know, like the one we're doing now. But this is my video, the one I just talked about, Camtasia. So you see my headshot over there, right? So they are able to see me, which and I do this narrated. I have instructor-generated resource every week. You know, it's only a short 10 minutes, but I think it still creates a presence rather than just loading PowerPoint and or giving other web resources. You know, this is like they know that you're there. And this is the introduction I was talking about, doing voice thread introduction. So when I expect students to introduce via voice thread, I do the same, so that, you know, they can hear and know more about me too. So that's very important. So I give them my voice thread introduction. This is my orientation, course orientation, you know, the one I talked about earlier. So again, in that too, you know, you're demoing how the course works and setting, you know, stage for the course. So again, you know, I do it via Camtasia so they can see and hear me. I briefly mentioned this, you know, earlier, how I like for students to contact me, and so this is my order of preference. And again, you know, this shows that you're pleasant, right? And when questions come up on Contact the Instructor forum or email, you're quick to respond, and they know that they can hear you and see you. Okay, Karen has a question. Let's take the question. Do you feel it is possible to have an online course without recording lectures? So Karen, I have seen several online courses without recording lectures, especially if there are, you know, other videos that you want to use. I mean, totally possible if there are other experts in the field who have already done it and you want to use that. But my recommendation is you could do it, but then make sure that your presence is still known in other ways. You know, if not for a lecture, you know, some other ways, you know, sending periodic emails. You know, I talked about response time. I think it's important for students to know that you are there. That's very, very critical. Again, I don't know what exactly research says, instructor-generated material versus no instructor-generated lectures. You know, I would encourage it, even if it is short ones. Oh, great, so you do Google Hangouts, Mary says. So that's great. So synchronous sessions are perfect. And you know, some instructors I've also seen them do, so they don't record it on Camtasia or another screencasting tool. They do it on a synchronous session, and I've seen faculty record that and then use that as, you know, I'm sure, Mary, you record it and you share it to the class if they want to go back and look at it. So, you know, so that's another way for them to hear you. So just for you to be pleasant and have that exchange of ideas with them, you know, I think is very important. Okay, and thank you, Sam. Sam has a recommendation: chunk your material, keep videos short, 8 to 10 minute max. Yeah, and you don't have to record it like to 1 hour. You know, students are not going to listen. So I totally agree with Sam. I shoot for 10 minutes. Sometimes I go over to 12, 13 minutes, but that's my, you know, my goal. So, you know, you don't have to feel that you have to do the same lecture that you're doing in class. What I do is it's like a quick summary and overview, also like, you know, bringing in other things that typically they don't get from readings and other resources. So that's what I usually do in my e-lesson. Customizing the syllabus helps. Add color to it, put pictures in there, you know, make it different, make it stand out so that, you know, they know that it is your syllabus. That is very important. I already mentioned response time, so I'm going to skip that. So how else do they know that you're pleasant? A variety of forums, you know, sending periodic announcements. I send out an announcement every Monday, so, you know, that helps. So they know that you are there. And if they don't hear from you for several weeks, then, you know, that doesn't show that you're actively present. Responding quickly to Contact Instructor forum helps. So the first two here, you know, it definitely shows that you are present. And this is, again, the Contact Instructor forum that I talked about, responding quickly to the students. That helps. This is my announcements. You know, I call them, the emails I send out to them as to-do emails. So every Monday they get an email from me. And then on top of that, if there is a need, I send out another email. If not, usually they get like a Monday email for sure. And I talked about being present in discussions. So what I do in my courses, you know, I teach at the graduate level, so I have students sign up to be discussion facilitators. But then what I also do is I'm there too. Like, I'm not there as extensively, but I'm there at least a couple of days a week. I read posts, I respond to a few. I think it is important, right? That interaction for us to be there. So some other recommendations or discussions is clear instructions are important, setting expectations, and also referring students by name. This is the instructor-generated Camtasia one that I already showed to you earlier, so that helps. On projects, I mentioned grading criteria. Make it as clear, personalize it. So, that shows, the clear expectations. Again, it helps create that presence, show that you are there. I also do something called as reflections every week or every module, and I ask them 3 questions. What benefited you the most from working on this module? What challenged you the most? And how do you see yourself applying what you learned in this module in your current or future job setting? And what I do is, it's short, it's a text entry box, but it helps me connect with them. And I respond to their reflection each week, 2-3 sentences. But again, that shows that I'm reading their reflection and that I'm being present. That helps. And Mary mentioned Hangouts. I like, Skype. Of late, I love Webex. We're using Webex to do the session. I love the meeting room in Webex. So it's not the training center, but it's under the meeting center. And each of us, we have a meeting room, a personal meeting room. So it's uncc.webex.com/meet/your username. And the link stays the same. So you could give it out to students, and you can use it for office hours or any time you want to meet with your students. And it's great. It doesn't have all the functionality as a training center, but it has several. You can still do the audio video call. You could still do chat. You could still do sharing. So it has pretty much all that you need. And it's the same link. So that's what I like about it. You don't have to create a room each time. This is like set specifically for you. So, if somebody wants to already ask me to meet with me, I just give them this link and I tell them, let's meet in my meeting room. Mary, I don't know the answer to that question. I've always done only one-on-one meetings, but maybe we can find that for you. I don't think there is a limit. I see, yeah. So we will look into that. Yeah. You know what? Let me take that back. When I did some capstone demonstrations, I had students, more than one student logged in at a time. So I think we should not have multiple people. Yeah, Sam says multiple people. Especially, since this is licensed, right? Unlike some of the free tools. So we shouldn't have issues with the number of people logging in or with how long we can meet with a person. So I love those meeting rooms. Collecting feedback, I'm still in presence. Collecting mid-semester and end-of-semester feedback. It just shows that as an instructor, you are there and you care about what they think, and their feedback is important to you. So having some kind of, taking the time to collect feedback is very important. I know that was a lot of slides under presence, but I think it's very, very important. So I wanted to show you a variety of strategies. So any questions on that? Anything else that you guys do? Okay. Yeah, please feel free to share what you do too, so that we all can learn from it. So moving on to presentation. So that's the next one. So this is mainly for those of you who do synchronous sessions, or also even if you do recordings. Describing what you're doing on screen is important. Using pointers is important. I don't do a good job as much, but I'm working on it. Where you're going, what you click, using the whiteboard and annotation features help. Marking things out when you are recording or when you're doing synchronous sessions help. And summarizing, what has been discussed or demonstrated helps. And breaking up your screen with text, with graphics to help students visualize your topic also helps. Again, continuing on presentation, we don't want to get carried away just with the technology, but we want to focus on instructional objectives and making instruction relevant. So, it's not essential that you try all the different features or, all the different latest technology, but then focus more on the objectives. And you want to avoid scrolling too much, like avoiding the happy mouse syndrome, especially if you're recording or clicking all over the screen. You don't want to be doing that. So that's quickly on presentation. On interaction, again, last year I did a whole webinar on interaction. So this is again very important too. Presence and interaction are very, very important, and I think they kind of go hand in hand too. So my definition is, from Daniel and Marcus, it's old. If you see it from 88, interaction is an activity in which a student is in two-way contact with one or two more persons. And we know that it is very, very important. And there's also a definition from Gilbert and Moore, who say that in computer-mediated instruction, it's a reciprocal exchange between the technology and the learner. So I like Moore's framework, where they recommend us to focus on three types of interaction: learner to learner, learner to instructor, and learner to content. So paying careful attention to all those three really helps. And Sam, thank you for finding that number for us. Sam just found that the official limit is 500 participants in a meeting. Of course, you don't want to have 500, but there's a lot of room. So I'm going to skip over this slide. So here are some strategies. So learner to learner, how can we establish that interaction? What are some strategies? In a previous slide, I showed you some forums. So I had one called Student Lounge. So Student Lounge is an area where students can meet informally and talk to each other about anything that they want to. So giving them that room to do that, learner to learner. And then also the icebreaker, the introduction discussion I talked about earlier. So that's another opportunity. What I do is, so they have to make the post, and they also have to respond to two other people. So now, they're getting to know their peers. There's learner to learner interaction, and that is very important. I also, for my discussions, I do discussion facilitators, and where they have to monitor posts, moderate, and also they have to summarize. Again, so now there is another learner-to-learner interaction happening, right? Students are talking to each other. At the grad level, they bring a wealth of information, wealth of experience, so it's really important. But even in the undergraduate courses, I think, there should definitely be opportunity for it. Using peer review for projects, that enhances learner-to-learner interaction. Motivates students to display, their work with classmates, getting feedback. And in synchronous sessions that you're doing, using breakout rooms. Webex has a great breakout room feature. So you can send them into a breakout room for 10 minutes, have a discussion, bring them back. So there is that exchange of ideas in learner-to-learner. So I talked about all this. So that's the student lounge that I was referring to. And there's my icebreaker introduction. I do voice thread, but then they talk to each other too. This is for facilitating discussions. I give them instructions. I tell them what they do. So this is for the peer reviewing projects, and this is for the synchronous meeting. So there's a lot of variety of, lots of options for them to talk to each other. Oh, there's a question. Okay, thank you, Mary. Peer reviews work very well if you give them expectations. Yeah, great. I agree with you. Yes. And that's very important. Setting clear expectations, I think that's very, very critical. So let's look at some learner to instructor. And I think I must have gone through a lot of the learner to instructor when I talked about presence, right? Because presence focuses so much on the instructor being there. So synchronous sessions is one. Interacting by name in discussions is another, which we talked. Regular announcement emails to students, that's another. Providing multiple ways for students to contact you is another. Providing office hours and phone appointments, showing that you're there and responding promptly is another. I also mentioned my reflection, for them to reflect with you and you responding to them. I think that helps. Providing thorough feedback via text, audio, video, and visuals. We have some great features in Canvas where you could do audio feedback, video feedback, easy to do, so it doesn't have to be just text. So those are some great options where it kind of shows that, the learner-instructor interaction is there. So this is, I'm going to skip over the screenshots. These are the ones that I just talked about. Okay, moving to learner content. Okay, Mary has a question about free whiteboard tools we can use off campus. Do you have any recommendations? I don't know top of my head.
The only ones, of course, that I'm familiar with are the ones that are included in web conferencing products.
Okay.
I don't know about anything that's just online, although I am sure there are some.
Yeah, yeah. Same, I agree with Sam. I also use the one whiteboard tools usually within the synchronous platform, but I'm sure there's out there too. If I find any, I'll send it your way, Mary. Learner to content. So presenting content in more than one format is important. You know, you don't want everything just to be text-based. Text, video, audio, a combination of all that helps. Using games and simulations. You know, these days keeping the students engaged, getting their attention. That's nice. Providing links to online resources which allow students to explore the topic in more depth. You know, optional resources are nice to have too, and then audio video clips to guest lectures. So, you know, if you're not doing your own lectures, or even in addition, if you want to give expert lectures, those are nice to have. Synchronous sessions, you know, helps them connect with the content in a different way. So those are all some different ways how students can connect with content. You can even guide students into generating their own content, right? So that's another way to enhance that. Requiring participation in discussion forums that require students to reflect and build on content. That is important. And then self-tests. You can have them check their own understanding of content, you know. That is neat too. And keeping the format of your lessons consistent. I'm glad you were able to join us, Karen. Karen has to leave for class. So this is the consistent categories. I showed you this table earlier. So, you know, again, when we talk about content, you know, that consistency is important. So that's how I did in Moodle, but now in Canvas, you know, I just use the module functionality in Canvas, but I follow the same, you know, headings for each week. So students know, you know, okay, my objectives are here, my readings are here, my e-lesson is here. So, you know, that really helps. Instructor generated and expert presentations, both help, right, when it comes to learner to content. So thinking of ways to integrating both those into your courses definitely helps. Okay, it's about 10:43. We're almost there towards the end. Any questions on interaction? Okay, I'm glad you guys are asking us questions. You know, in the chat window. So moving on, engagement is similar to interaction, right? You're engaging students by raising their curiosity and encouraging full participation. Again, you know, using games, competition, multimedia, all that helps. Interacting with them regularly, using breakout rooms, using peer review for projects, all that gets them to be engaged. I actually went up and looked up the definition. How do they differentiate interaction and engagement? Because these two terms get used interchangeably a lot. So interaction is defined as, you know, to act one upon another, like, so you're having some effect on each other. So, but engagement can be within oneself, okay? To attract, hold fast, occupy attention of another or oneself. So that internal, you know, you can be self-engaged. So that's very important. And so staying engaged is important. Keeping your students engaged is important. Moving on to communication. Using both synchronous and asynchronous communication is important. You know, I'm sure some of you use it for different things. I've seen faculty use synchronous tools for orientation. I do a mid-semester Q&A in between if students want to join me, you know, just random, like, you know, log in and ask me questions. I do that. Or I also make them do presentations at the end of the semester. So I don't do more than 3 or 2, but, you know, having that opportunity, kind of blending it, you know, with asynchronous is sometimes nice. Providing online office hours and phone appointments, making sure, like, you know, you respond to them. So that's very important. When you do synchronous, especially, you know, keep in mind the differences in time zones to accommodate all student needs. And also being visible in your classroom. I talked about, being present, so being there in discussions and work groups is important, and responding to inquiries as soon as possible. If students don't hear from us, they begin to panic. Right, so it is very important. Sometimes if we are busy, or we are traveling, or if there's a question we don't have an answer to, always just letting them know that you're working on it, or it's going to take you a while to get back to them also helps. So these are my 4 forums that I showed you. So different forms of communication helps. So announcements, contact the instructor, and the other 2 are the student lounge and the forum summaries. Providing feedback, very, very important. In a face-to-face setting, we give so much of informal feedback, and there's that immediate feedback. So in an online setting, we have to really take the time, make sure that they're getting that feedback from us, providing timely and meaningful feedback to learners. And you want to respond to posts and assignments as quickly as possible. Give constructive and substantive comments. That's very important. Ask your students, often what is working and what is not. Don't wait till the end of the course. What I do is, as I said, I ask them questions. I ask a question at the end of week 3 about the design of the course. Then I ask a couple of questions middle of the semester. And then at the end of the semester, along with the university evaluation, I have my own evaluation that I do with more specific strategies that I use in my course. I ask them questions about the different topics we cover. So, to get more detailed feedback about the course. So that is very important. Providing that feedback this is like, asking, getting feedback. So feedback is 2 ways, right? You provide feedback to the students, and then you also receive feedback from the students. So it's critical for both ways. It's just not one way. Finally, number 10 is assessment and evaluation, very critical. And in an online setting, it is different, right? Doing assessment is different. So, thinking about variety of ways how you can assess your students, and multiple opportunities, right? From formative assessments to summative assessments. You can have discussions, to quizzes, to projects, to papers. So, thinking about the variety of ways you could assess your students is very important. So you want to think about all the activities you do in a face-to-face class and how that can be adapted for online delivery. And if there's an important deadline assessment coming up, you can always send announcements about that, and track students' progress. It's very important. Finally, there is always room for improvement with the next iteration. So keep track of notes and feedback. What I do is I have a notepad within my course folders, like on my computer, on my Dropbox. And every time I see questions coming up on Contact the Instructor forum, I take notes. I tell myself, so the next time I do it, I should do this differently. So I write notes for myself, because we're not going to remember. In 15 weeks, you think, oh, I'm going to change this, but we usually, it's hard to keep track of everything. So the next year when I go back to teach that course, I usually then go pull it up, and then I make the changes. The fewer questions you get on Contact Instructor forum, which means the course is running a lot more smoother. And there's always things for us to learn and improve. And so the focus, today's presentation was, we wanted to give you the big picture, right? I know this was a lot, and we packed it in within an hour, 50 minutes actually. This is a lot, but we have a few more focused webinars coming up too. There's one in October that I'm doing on time management specifically. So we look at specific time management strategies. And then in spring, we're going to do 2 more. I think we're going to do one on interaction and one on presence. So we'll spend a lot more time talking about those 2 things specifically. Any questions for me? Is there anything you want to tell us if you don't have questions? No? Somebody talk.
So before we end, I would just like to share with you, this is late morning already, just like to follow up with what Lauren said and point out some of our upcoming webinars that we have. So you can see there that October 25th is the webinar that Lawrence will be doing on time management. You can see there